Looking back on a lot of my relationships as a neurodivergent, I realized I could be somewhat cavalier with other people's feelings, often not intentionally, usually accidentally. And by this I mean I would fail to read a room, I'd go in guns blazing, being my authentic neurodivergent self, not realizing that I was surrounded by neurotypicals who are looking for subtext, who are having double meanings in what I was saying, misinterpreting my intention, and looking for sarcasm where there wasn't sarcasm. These are just some examples of common challenges that I experience and many autistics and ADHDers experience. In these situations, I was usually just being direct. There was no second meaning. I was just being clear. I perceived to be clear in my communication. However, I wasn't conversant in neurotypical language, social languages, so I didn't realize that they were reading out for these things that weren't there, and that I was then supposed to correct it and point out to them, sorry, clarifying here, that's not how I meant it. But by that point, a lot of people had gone on and interpreted a different meaning to what I was conveying. And it's very labor intensive and very emotionally labor intensive as well to have to go and then issue the correction. To read that we've been misread by the neurotypical, we might often not even be able to do that. And then when we do that, we get in a mental tangle trying to figure out what have they interpreted from what I've said, and then having to correct it and mend feelings, because feelings get hurt when this misunderstanding happens. This is the basis of the double empathy problem, this presumption, often by neurotypicals, that we have to communicate in their style and we have to not meet them in the middle, meet them where they're at. And this double empathy problem argues that actually, they have to kind of flex a little as much as we do so we can meet in the middle. We have to adjust our styles and compensate for our differences. But because neurotypicals are the majority, the expectation often falls on us as neurodivergents to overcompensate for our difference. So we have to be conversant in two different languages at the same time: neurodivergence and neurotypicality. And that makes every social interaction very exhausting and draining. We don't mean to be cavalier, it's just we might not have the skills or have the energy to go through all this work of patching up holes that we didn't realize we'd inflicted or never intended to. And I think a lot of the challenge is that assumptions are made about people's intentions, but clarifying questions are rarely asked. So when there's a misunderstanding, the onus is then on you to correct that, to interpret it, to read it, that you've been misread, and then to actually clarify and, again, mend people's feelings. Another way in which I feel we can often be cavalier, based on my own experience, is that we fail to read when other people are romantically interested in us. So somebody might be looking at us a certain way, communicating with us a certain way, reading or misreading what we're doing as flirting, when a lot of the times we're just genuinely interested in trying to connect and vibe with somebody. I know in a lot of my interactions, I'm like, oh, you want to be my friend? That's my default. Let's be friends. But people might have an attraction to me or find me attractive, and I might not read that. And I might get a sense of it maybe, but I'm just kind of pushing it to the side because it's uncomfortable, and I also don't know if I'm misreading it or if I'm projecting something. And then they'll continue to progress in their attraction and their perception that the attention I'm giving them is validation of their romantic attraction. When in reality, I'm just being, as I perceive to be, excited about a new friend. I'm reciprocating their energy, and they'll go down this like rabbit hole of perceiving a relationship that's in existence or we're building towards, which we're really not. And then they get very frustrated and hurt because it doesn't eventuate in anything. Meanwhile, I'm obliviously going on, no idea that they've gone down this rabbit hole and constructed this narrative about the trajectory of our relationship. And it's led in a lot of cases to hurt feelings, and that person then distancing themselves, which communicates to me that they were never really interested in friendship necessarily to begin with. But I don't want to invalidate the fact that they feel hurt by me not being cognizant of their feelings. I don't feel like I'm responsible for those feelings, but I think as a conscientious person who cares about other people and has empathy and compassion, I want to make sure that their feelings are taken care of to some extent. But to me, I can't always be on the ball about realizing somebody has an intention until they directly communicate to me, in which we can kind of resolve it. But these things often go unsaid. It's in glances, in flirtatious remarks, and then there's this other component where I feel socially pressured sometimes to reciprocate flirtatious remarks, even when I don't want to, and that's the people-pleasing component. And I know that can send mixed signals to somebody, and that's not really fair, but I'm like, awkward, somebody's coming at me with romantic attention, and I'm just gonna like throw the energy back at them, but then that they'll see that as permission to continue, and I'm like, I was just being socially silly and playing along with you as I perceive it to be. And I think that does happen not so often, and it's something that happens under pressure unintentionally. But most of the time is that I'm just failing to read that somebody has an attraction to me, and then I'm disregarding that and just going on like nothing exists. And then when I start becoming aware of it, the uncomfortability about it is so profound that I don't want to address it. I don't want to talk to the person about it. I don't want to name the elephant in the room. And they kind of go along with that. And then so we dig our hole deeper, and it gets to the point that they're infatuated, and I've completely brushed them off, and then they get really, really hurt. Have you been in these situations where your intentions have been misread, or somebody projected a false narrative onto you about what you intended to do or say and why you said it, or somebody became attracted to you and you were completely oblivious of it until it was too late? I would love to hear from you.